The mining station on planet Kepler 442b was busy every day. Workers from many different worlds came here to dig for special crystals deep under the ground. The crystals were worth more money than gold back on Earth. Ships came and went every week, taking the crystals to markets across the galaxy. Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his face as he checked the drilling machines. He was a human engineer from Texas, and he had been working on this station for 3 years now. The planet was hot and dry, with 2 suns that made every day feel like summer in a desert. Jake did not mind the heat. He grew up in hot places back on Earth. The workers on the station came from 6 different alien races. They were the Drachmarians with their green scaly skin and cold yellow eyes. They owned the mining operation and made all the big decisions. The Vorthon workers looked like giant insects with 4 arms each. They were very good at digging tunnels. The blue-skinned Zalani ran the computers and machines. They were smart but did not like to get dirty. Then there were the Felinar. They looked like lions that could walk on 2 legs. They had golden fur and long manes around their heads. The Felinar were strong and brave. Most of them worked as guards and security officers on the station. They kept everyone safe from the dangerous animals that lived on this planet. Zarek was the head of security. He was a big Felinar with bright amber eyes and a thick golden mane. His voice was deep and powerful like thunder. When Zarek spoke, everyone listened. He carried himself with pride, like a king. The other Felinar respected him, and even the Drachmarian bosses treated him well. Jake liked working with Zarek. The big catman was always fair and honest. He never got angry without good reason. When new workers came to the station, Zarek made sure they knew the safety rules. He did not want anyone to get hurt on his watch. The mining tunnels went deep into the planet. Some tunnels were over a mile underground. The air down there was hot and full of dangerous gases. Workers had to wear special suits and masks to breathe. The crystal veins were hard to reach, hidden behind thick walls of rock and metal. On Tuesday morning, Jake was fixing a broken drill when the alarm started ringing. The loud sound echoed through the whole station. Red lights flashed on every wall. Jake dropped his tools and ran toward the main control room. In the control room, screens showed what was happening in Tunnel 7. There had been an explosion. Part of the tunnel roof had fallen down. 12 workers were trapped deep underground. The fallen rocks blocked the only way out. Commander Vex was the Drachmarian in charge of the station. His scales were darker green than most of his kind, and his eyes were cold like winter ice. He looked at the screens and made quick decisions. "Seal Tunnel 7, he ordered. "The structure is not stable. We cannot risk more workers." But Zarek stepped forward. His amber eyes were burning with determination. "Commander, there are 12 people down there. They are still alive. I can reach them." "Negative," Vex said. His voice was flat and emotionless. "The tunnel could collapse completely at any moment. I will not lose more workers trying to save the ones who are already lost." Zarek did not argue. That was not his way. Instead, he walked out of the control room. Jake followed him, wondering what the big Felinar was planning. Zarek went to the equipment room and started putting on a heavy mining suit. The suit would protect him from the hot air and dangerous gases in the tunnels. He checked his emergency oxygen supply and picked up a powerful cutting tool. "What are you doing?" Jake asked. "What must be done?" Zarek replied. He pulled on his helmet and walked toward the tunnel entrance. Jake watched from the surface as Zarek disappeared into the dark tunnel. The security cameras showed him moving fast through the fallen rocks. His powerful arms pushed aside stones that would take 3 humans to move. When he reached the trapped workers, he started carrying them out one by one. The first worker, Zarek, brought up was a young Vorthon who could barely breathe. The second was an older human woman with a broken arm. One by one, Zarek made trips into the dangerous tunnel. Each time the tunnel shook and more rocks fell. Each time, it became more dangerous. "He is going to get himself killed," Commander Vex said. But he did not order anyone to stop Zarek. After 2 hours, Zarek had saved 11 workers. Only one remained trapped in the deepest part of the tunnel. This worker was pinned under a heavy beam. Zarek would need more time to free him, but time was running out. The tunnel was shaking harder now. More of the roof was starting to fall. The walls were cracking. Everyone watching the screens knew that the tunnel was about to collapse completely. Zarek went down anyway. He found the last trapped worker and started cutting through the metal beam. The trapped worker was a Drakmarian named Kes. He was young and scared. "Leave me," Kes whispered. "Save yourself." But Zarek kept cutting. "A guardian does not abandon his people," he said. Just as Zarek freed Kes, the tunnel shook violently. A huge piece of the roof crashed down. Sharp crystal pieces flew through the air like knives. One piece cut deep into Zarek's side. Another heavy beam fell and pinned his right leg to the ground. Zarek pushed Kes toward the tunnel entrance. "Go!" he commanded. "Tell them what happened here." Kes crawled out of the tunnel just before the entrance collapsed completely. Tons of rock and metal sealed Zarek inside. The big Felinar was trapped alone in the dark, bleeding and hurt. On the surface, the rescue was over. 11 workers had been saved. But the price was high. Zarek, the brave security chief who had saved them all, was buried alive under the collapsed tunnel. Commander Vex looked at the sealed tunnel entrance and made his final decision. "Mark Tunnel 7 as closed permanently. We will hold funeral rites for Security Chief Zarek tomorrow." The other Felinar workers gathered around Elder Thane, their spiritual leader. They began singing the death song for Zarek. In their culture, a warrior who could not save himself had lost his honor. It was better to let him die with what dignity remained. But Jake Morrison stood at the edge of the collapsed tunnel entrance. His hands were clenched into fists. His face was red with anger. The stubborn human from Texas was not ready to give up on his friend. Jake Morrison could not believe what he was hearing. The other workers were walking away from the collapsed tunnel like nothing had happened. They talked about Zarek like he was already dead. Some of them even seemed relieved that the dangerous rescue was over. "You people are crazy," Jake said loudly. His voice carried across the mining station. Everyone stopped and looked at him. "That Catman just saved 12 lives. 12 people are going home to their families because of him, and you want to bury him like garbage." Commander Vex turned his cold yellow eyes toward Jake. The Drakmarian commander was not used to being challenged by workers. "Engineer Morrison, you are speaking from emotion. The facts are clear. The tunnel structure has failed completely. Any attempt to dig through those rocks will cause more death." Jake spat in the red dirt. "Then I guess I'll have to do it myself." The other humans on the station heard Jake's words. Pete Collins was the mining foreman. He was a big man with gray hair and strong hands from 30 years of hard work. Pete had worked with Zarek every day for 2 years. He trusted the Felinar more than most humans he knew. "Count me in, Jake," Pete said. He put down his clipboard and rolled up his sleeves. "I've got equipment that can move those rocks." Lisa Grant was the station medic. She was a young woman with red hair and green eyes. Lisa had patched up workers from all different races. She knew alien biology better than most doctors. "If we find him alive, he's going to need serious medical help," she said. "I'm coming too." Ryan Bell ran the communications center. He was quiet most of the time, but he never forgot a favor. Last year, Zarek had saved Ryan from a giant lizard that attacked him outside the station. "Someone needs to coordinate the rescue," Ryan said. "I'll handle communications and scanning equipment." Commander Vex watched the 4 humans gather their equipment. His scaly face showed no emotion, but his tail was twitching with anger. "I forbid this rescue attempt. As station commander, I order you to stop this madness immediately." Pete looked up from the drilling machine he was checking. "Last time I read our contracts, we work for Earth Mining Corporation, not the Drakmarian Empire. You can give us advice, but you cannot give us orders." The Drakmarian commander hissed softly. It was a sound that meant danger in his culture. "You humans do not understand the situation. The tunnel is completely unstable. The rocks could shift at any moment. If you go down there, you will die. Then I will have 4 more bodies to explain to your corporation." Jake was already putting on his mining suit. "Maybe we will die. Maybe we won't. But we're sure as hell going to try. Because that's what humans do." Elder Thane approached the group of humans. He was an old Felinar with silver fur and wise amber eyes. Thane was the spiritual leader of all Felinar workers on the station. He spoke for their culture and traditions. "Human Morrison," Thane said in his deep, careful voice, "I do not understand your actions. Zarek fought with honor. He saved many lives before falling in battle. His death song has been sung. His spirit has been released to join the great hunt in the sky. Why do you disturb his peace with this hopeless struggle? Lisa looked up from her medical bag. Her green eyes were bright with anger. Because he's not dead yet. And as long as there's a chance he's alive, we don't give up. That's how humans think. But he has already fallen with honor, Thane said. To continue fighting against fate brings shame to his sacrifice. In our culture, a warrior who cannot save himself has lost his way. It is better to let him die with dignity. Jake stopped putting on his suit and looked directly at the old Felinar. With respect, Elder Thane, that's not how we see it. Where I come from, nobody gets left behind. Not if there's any chance of bringing them home. Honor doesn't mean much if you're dead. Other alien workers gathered around to watch the argument. The Vorthan workers clicked their mandibles nervously. They did not understand why the humans would risk their lives for someone who was probably already dead. The Zalani whispered to each other in their musical language. They calculated the probability of success and found it very low. Some of the aliens started placing bets on what would happen. Would the humans give up when they realized how dangerous it was? Would they die in the collapsed tunnel? Would they actually manage to save Zarek? The odds were not good for any positive outcome. Commander Vex tried a different approach. Even if Security Chief Zarek is still alive, he is badly injured. The medical scanners detected massive internal bleeding before we lost contact. He may already be dead from his injuries. Then we'll bring his body back, Pete said simply. His family deserves to bury him properly. The Felinar do not bury their dead, Thane said. We burn them under the open sky so their spirits can rise with the smoke. Fine, Jake said. Then they can burn him under the open sky. But they're going to do it up here, not down in that tunnel. The humans finished preparing their equipment. Pete had a powerful drilling machine that could break through rock. Ryan brought scanning devices that could detect life signs and map the tunnel structure. Lisa packed medical supplies for treating severe injuries. Jake carried cutting tools and emergency oxygen supplies. Commander Vex made one last attempt to stop them. I will not authorize this mission. If something goes wrong, Earth Mining Corporation will hold me responsible. I cannot risk my position for this foolish rescue attempt. Jake looked at the Drakmarian commander with disgust. Nobody asked you to authorize anything. We're not doing this for you or your position. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. The four humans walked toward the collapsed tunnel entrance. Behind them, dozens of alien workers watched in confusion. Some of them thought the humans were brave. Others thought they were stupid. Most thought they were both. Elder Thane called out to them one more time. If you die down there, we will sing the death song for you as well. You will be honored as warriors who fell fighting for their friend. Thanks, Jake called back. But we're planning to come back alive. Pete fired up his drilling machine. The loud noise echoed across the mining station. Slowly, the humans began cutting through the tons of rock and metal that sealed the tunnel entrance. It was going to be dangerous work. The tunnel could collapse again at any moment. Poisonous gases might leak out of the deeper mines. Sharp pieces of crystal could fall and cut them to pieces. But the humans did not care about the danger. They had made their decision. Zarek had risked everything to save others. Now they would risk everything to save him. It was the human way. As they worked, more aliens gathered to watch. Some of them started to understand something new about humans. These strange creatures from Earth did not think like other species. They did not calculate risks and benefits the way others did. When their friends were in danger, humans became something different. Something stubborn and determined and maybe a little bit crazy. The drilling continued through the day. Piece by piece, the humans cleared a path through the collapsed rocks. They were going back into the dark tunnel where Zarek was trapped. They were going to bring their friend home or die trying. The tunnel entrance was finally clear enough for the humans to squeeze through. Pete had worked for 6 hours straight with his drilling machine, cutting through rocks and twisted metal beams. His clothes were soaked with sweat, but he kept going. Behind the cleared rocks, the tunnel stretched into darkness like the mouth of a hungry beast. Jake checked his equipment one more time. His helmet light was working. His oxygen supply was full. His cutting tools were sharp and ready. The tunnel ahead looked like it wanted to swallow them alive, but Jake had made up his mind. Serac was down there somewhere, and they were going to find him. Radio check, Ryan said from his position at the surface. His communication equipment would keep them connected to the outside world. If something went wrong, he could call for help. Jake, can you hear me? Loud and clear, Jake replied through his helmet radio. "Pete, Lisa, how are you doing?" "Ready to go," Pete said. He carried a smaller drilling device and emergency support beams. If the tunnel started to collapse again, Pete would try to hold it up long enough for them to escape. "Medical supplies are secure," Lisa reported. She had packed everything she might need to treat severe injuries. Alien biology was different from human biology, but blood loss was blood loss. Broken bones were broken bones. She could work with that. The 4 humans entered the tunnel together. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness ahead. The air was thick and hot, even through their protective suits. Strange smells leaked through their air filters. The planet's core was deep below them, and dangerous gases rose up through cracks in the rock. Every step forward was a risk. The tunnel walls were covered with sharp crystal formations that could slice through their suits. Loose rocks hung from the ceiling like teeth ready to fall. Their footsteps echoed strangely in the confined space. "Temperature is rising," Lisa noted, checking her suit readings. "We're getting close to the volcanic vents. Everyone watch your cooling systems." They had been walking for 20 minutes when they reached the first major obstacle. A huge pile of rocks blocked their path completely. Water dripped from somewhere above, making everything slippery and dangerous. Pete examined the rockfall with his helmet light. "This is going to take time to clear. The rocks are wedged in tight. If I use too much drilling power, the vibrations might bring down more of the ceiling." "Do what you can," Jake said, "but do it fast. We don't know how much time Zarek has left." Pete started his drill on the lowest power setting. Slowly, carefully, he cut through the smaller rocks first. Each piece had to be moved by hand to avoid making too much noise. The work was slow and exhausting. While Pete worked, Ryan used his scanning equipment to map the tunnel ahead. His devices could see through rock and metal to show what lay beyond the obstruction. "I'm picking up some kind of structure about 60 meters ahead," he reported. "Looks like a larger chamber. That might be where Zarek is trapped." "Any life signs?" Jake asked. Ryan adjusted his scanner settings. The device was designed to detect different types of alien biology. Felinar physiology was similar to Earth cats, but bigger and with some differences. "Maybe," Ryan said after a moment. "There's something down there. Could be Zarek, could be equipment, could be nothing. The scanner isn't clear through all this rock." It took 2 hours to clear the first rockfall. By then, all 4 humans were tired and running low on water. The heat inside the tunnel was getting worse as they went deeper. Their cooling systems were working hard to keep them from overheating. They reached the second obstacle at the 3-hour mark. This time it was not rocks blocking their way. A section of the tunnel ceiling had collapsed, leaving a gap they would have to crawl through. The gap was narrow and looked unstable. Sharp pieces of metal stuck out from the walls like knives. "I don't like this," Pete said, examining the gap with his light. "One wrong move and the whole section could come down on us." "Can you reinforce it?" Jake asked. Pete pulled out his emergency support beams. They were made of lightweight metal designed to hold up tunnel ceilings during emergencies. "I can try, but these beams are not designed for this kind of damage. They might hold or they might not." "Do it," Jake decided. "We've come too far to turn back now." Pete carefully positioned his support beams in the gap. The metal groaned as it took the weight of the loose rocks above. It would hold for a while, but not forever. They would have to move fast. One by one, the humans crawled through the narrow gap. Jake went first, testing each movement to make sure the supports would hold. His broad shoulders barely fit through the opening. Behind him, Pete's breathing was loud and nervous over the radio. Lisa came next, moving carefully with her medical supplies. The sharp metal edges caught on her suit several times, but the material held. Ryan brought up the rear, his scanning equipment making the crawl even more difficult. They were all through the gap when they heard the first life sign clearly. It was a low, painful growling sound that echoed from somewhere ahead. The sound was weak but definitely alive. "That's him," Jake said, his heart beating faster. "That's Zarek." They moved as quickly as they dared through the remaining tunnel. The walls here were covered with a strange blue glow from crystal formations. The crystals were beautiful, but they were also radioactive. Their suits would protect them for a while, but not forever. Finally, they reached the chamber where Zarek was trapped. It was a large space where several tunnels came together. The chamber had been a storage area for mining equipment before the collapse. Now it was a tomb. Zarek lay pinned under a massive metal beam. The beam had fallen across his right leg, trapping him against the chamber wall. Around him, broken equipment and fallen rocks created a maze of obstacles. His golden fur was matted with blue blood. His breathing was shallow and labored. When their lights hit his face, Zarek's amber eyes opened slowly. He looked confused at first, like he was seeing ghosts. Then recognition dawned in his eyes. "Human friends," Zarek whispered. His voice was so weak they could barely hear it through their helmet radios. "You should not have come. This place is cursed. It hungers for more victims." Jake knelt beside the trapped Felinar. Up close, he could see how badly Zarek was hurt. Sharp crystal pieces had cut deep wounds in his side. His right leg was twisted at an unnatural angle under the beam. His breathing was getting weaker. "Save your strength, big guy," Jake said. "We're getting you out of here." Lisa immediately began examining Zarek's injuries. Her medical scanner showed internal bleeding, broken ribs, and a severely damaged leg. "He's in bad shape," she reported quietly to the others. "We need to work fast." Pete began setting up his cutting equipment around the metal beam. The beam was thick and heavy, made of the same strong alloy used in spaceship hulls. It would take time to cut through, and time was something they did not have much of. Ryan established communication with the surface while keeping his scanners active. "Surface team, this is Rescue 1. We have found Security Chief Zarek. He is alive but critically injured. We are beginning extraction procedures." Commander Vex's voice came back over the radio, cold and emotionless. "Rescue team, the tunnel structure is continuing to deteriorate. You have limited time before total collapse becomes inevitable." Jake looked around the chamber. The walls were cracked. Water dripped from the ceiling. The floor was unstable under their feet. Everything about this place screamed danger. But Zarek was here, and they were not leaving without him. "Understood, Surface," Jake replied. "We're not coming back alone." Pete's cutting torch burned bright blue in the dark chamber. The metal beam that trapped Zarek was thick and strong, designed to support massive weights in mining operations. Each cut through the metal took precious time, and time was running out fast. The chamber shook as another section of tunnel collapsed somewhere deeper in the mine. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling above them. The support beams Pete had installed earlier groaned under increasing pressure. "How much longer?" Jake asked, watching Lisa work on Zarek's wounds. "At least 3 more hours," Pete replied, sweat dripping inside his helmet. "This metal is tougher than anything I've cut before. My torch is running low on fuel, too." Lisa had rigged an emergency medical station using equipment from the chamber. Old mining tools became surgical instruments. A broken water tank became a wash basin. She worked with steady hands despite the dangerous conditions around them. "His blood pressure is dropping," Lisa reported. "Internal bleeding is worse than I thought. I can stabilize him for now, but he needs real surgery soon." Zarek drifted in and out of consciousness. When he was awake, he tried to convince the humans to leave him behind. "Go," he whispered during one conscious moment. "Save yourselves. I am already dead." "Shut up and let us work," Jake said, but his voice was gentle. He held Zarek's large paw in his hands, trying to keep the injured Felinar calm. Ryan monitored his equipment constantly. His scanners showed dangerous changes in the tunnel structure around them. "The whole system is shifting," he reported. "We've got maybe 6 more hours before this section becomes completely unstable." From the surface, Commander Vex's voice crackled over the radio. "Rescue team seismic readings show increased activity. Several other tunnels have collapsed in the past hour. You need to evacuate immediately." "Negative," Jake replied firmly. "We're not leaving without Zarek." "Your stubborn behavior is going to get all of you killed," Vex said. His voice showed more emotion than usual. Even the cold Drakmarian commander was worried about the humans. Above ground, other workers gathered around Ryan's communication station. They listened to reports from the rescue team with growing amazement. The Vorthan workers clicked their mandibles in confusion. The Zilani whispered calculations about survival probability. The other Felinar listened in silence, their amber eyes reflecting complex emotions. Elder Thane stood apart from the crowd. The old Felinar spiritual leader watched the tunnel entrance with thoughtful eyes. His people had sung the death song for Zarek. In their culture, that meant accepting his death with honor. But these humans refused to accept death. They fought against fate itself. 4 hours into the rescue operation, disaster struck. Pete was halfway through cutting the metal beam when his torch sputtered and died. The fuel cell was empty. Without the cutting torch, they could not free Zarek's trapped leg. "That's it," Pete said, frustration heavy in his voice. "I'm out of fuel. The backup cells are back on the surface." Jake looked at the half-cut beam. They were so close. Just a few more inches and Zarek would be free. But without cutting tools, those few inches might as well be miles. There has to be another way, Jake said. He examined the beam from every angle, looking for weakness or alternative solutions. Lisa continued working on Zarek's other injuries while they figured out the beam problem. She had managed to stop most of the external bleeding, but internal injuries were beyond her field equipment. "He's getting weaker," she warned. "We're running out of time." Ryan had an idea. "What if we use explosives? Small charges placed precisely might crack the beam enough for us to break it manually." "Too dangerous," Pete said immediately. "The vibrations could bring down the whole chamber. We'd be buried along with Zarek." Jake studied the beam more carefully. It was made of layered metal alloy, designed to bend rather than break under stress. But every material had a breaking point. "What if we don't try to cut through it? What if we try to bend it instead?" Pete looked where Jake was pointing. "Maybe. If we could get enough leverage, we might be able to bend it just enough to slide his leg out. But we'd need something strong to use as a lever." They searched the chamber for anything that could work as a lever. Broken mining equipment lay scattered everywhere, but most pieces were too short or too weak. Finally, Ryan found a long metal rod that had been part of a drilling assembly. "This might work," Ryan said, hefting the rod. "It's about 8 feet long and made of the same alloy as the beam." Pete examined the rod carefully. "It's not ideal, but it might do the job. We'll need to position it just right and apply force at exactly the right angle." They positioned the metal rod under the beam, using chunks of rock as a fulcrum point. The physics were simple in theory, but dangerous in practice. If the rod slipped or broke, they could injure Zarek even worse. If they applied too much force, the beam might snap back and crush his leg completely. "Everyone ready?" Jake asked. All 4 humans would need to work together to generate enough force to bend the massive beam. "Wait," Lisa said. She injected Zarek with a painkiller she had mixed from her medical supplies. "This is going to hurt him a lot. At least this will help." They positioned themselves around the metal rod. Jake took the far end where the most force would be needed. Pete and Ryan took positions in the middle. Lisa stayed near Zarek to monitor his condition and guide the bending process. "On 3, Jake said. 1, 2, 3. All 4 humans threw their weight against the metal rod. For a moment, nothing happened. The beam was too heavy and too strong. Then slowly they felt it start to give. The metal creaked and groaned as immense forces worked against its structure. "It's working," Lisa called out. "Keep going." A few more inches. Sweat poured down their faces inside their helmets. Their muscles burned with effort. The metal rod bent under the stress, threatening to break at any moment. But slowly, gradually, the beam lifted away from Zarek's trapped leg. "That's enough," Lisa said. "I can get him out now." Carefully, she pulled Zarek's injured leg free from under the beam. The leg was badly damaged, but it was no longer trapped. They had done it. After 6 hours of dangerous work, Zarek was finally free, but their problems were far from over. Now they had to carry an unconscious, badly injured Felinar through a collapsing tunnel system back to the surface. Zarek weighed over 300 pounds. His injuries made him difficult to move safely, and the tunnel was becoming more unstable every minute. Pete rigged a stretcher from mining equipment and emergency blankets. It was not pretty, but it would allow them to transport Zarek without making his injuries worse. Lisa secured his broken leg with splints made from metal rods. Ryan gathered their equipment and prepared for the journey back. "Surface team, this is Rescue 1. Jake reported over the radio. "We have freed Security Chief Zarek and are beginning evacuation. Estimate 2 hours to reach the surface." Commander Vex's reply was immediate. "Negative, Rescue Team. Seismic activity has increased dramatically. You have 30 minutes maximum before the main support structures fail completely." Jake looked at his teammates. 30 minutes to travel through a collapsing tunnel while carrying a severely injured person. It seemed impossible, but they had come too far to give up now. "Understood, Surface," Jake replied. "We're coming home." The journey back through the collapsing tunnel was the longest 30 minutes of their lives. Jake and Pete carried the front of Zarek's stretcher while Ryan and Lisa took the back. Every step was careful and measured. One wrong move could send them all tumbling into the darkness below. The tunnel shook constantly now. Rocks fell from the ceiling like deadly rain. Their helmet lights showed cracks spreading across the walls like spider webs. The support beams Pete had installed earlier were bending under impossible stress. "Move faster," Jake urged, but he knew they were already moving as fast as safely possible. Zarek's weight made every step difficult. His unconscious body rolled on the makeshift stretcher with each movement. Lisa monitored Zarek's vital signs while they walked. His breathing was weak but steady. The painkillers were keeping him unconscious, which was probably for the best. Being awake during this rescue would have been torture for the proud Felinar. They reached the first narrow gap they had crawled through hours earlier. Pete's support beams were still holding, but barely. The metal groaned ominously as they approached. "We can't fit the stretcher through there," Ryan observed. The gap was too narrow for 4 people carrying a large stretcher. "Then we carry him," Jake decided. "Pete and I will take his shoulders. You and Lisa take his legs. Move fast, but don't drop him." They lifted Zarek off the stretcher and maneuvered him through the narrow gap. His large frame barely fit through the opening. Sharp metal edges scraped against their suits as they squeezed through together. Just as Lisa's feet cleared the gap, the support beams finally gave way. The entire section collapsed behind them with a thunderous crash. Tons of rock and metal filled the space they had just passed through. "That was close," Ryan breathed, his voice shaky over the radio. "Too close," Pete agreed. "Let's keep moving." They rigged the stretcher again and continued toward the surface. The main tunnel ahead was in slightly better condition, but not by much. Water dripped from everywhere now. The air was getting hotter as volcanic gases rose from the deep mines. "Surface team, this is Rescue 1, Jake reported. "We're 15 minutes from the tunnel entrance. How are things looking up there?" Commander Vex's voice was tense. "Seismic activity is off the charts. The entire tunnel system is experiencing systematic failure. Whatever you're going to do, do it fast." Above ground, every worker on the station had gathered around the tunnel entrance. Drakmarians, Vortons, Zelani, and Felinar all watched and waited. Some placed final bets on whether the humans would make it out alive. Others prepared medical equipment and emergency supplies. Elder Thane stood closest to the tunnel entrance. The old Felinar's amber eyes were bright with emotion he rarely showed. Behind him, other Felinar workers waited in silence. They had sung the death song for Zarek hours ago. Now they might need to sing it for 4 brave humans as well. In the tunnel, the rescue team pushed forward through increasingly dangerous conditions. The walls were hot to the touch now. Poisonous gases leaked through their air filters, making breathing difficult. Their cooling systems were running at maximum power. "I can see light ahead," Ryan called out suddenly. Far in the distance, sunlight from the surface filtered down through the tunnel entrance. They were so close. Just a few more minutes and they would be safe. But the tunnel had other plans. A deep rumbling sound echoed from the depths below them. The whole structure was preparing for final collapse. "Run!" Jake shouted. There was no time for careful movement now. They had to reach the surface before the tunnel came down completely. The 4 humans ran through the darkness, carrying their injured friend between them. Behind them, sections of tunnel collapsed in sequence like falling dominoes. The sound was deafening. The ground shook so hard they could barely keep their footing. Rocks fell around them like a deadly storm. One large stone hit Pete's shoulder, spinning him around. Another grazed Lisa's helmet, cracking the faceplate, but they kept running toward the light. The tunnel entrance was just ahead when the final collapse began. The main support structure, weakened by hours of stress, finally gave way. A wall of rock and debris rushed toward them from behind like a giant wave. "Jump!" Jake yelled as they reached the tunnel entrance. All 4 humans threw themselves forward, carrying Zarek with them. They tumbled out of the tunnel entrance just as tons of rock sealed it forever. The ground shook one final time, then fell silent. For a moment, nobody moved. The humans lay in the red dirt outside the tunnel, gasping for breath inside their suits. Zarek's stretcher had landed safely beside them. All around them, alien workers stared in amazement. "Medical team to the tunnel entrance," Commander Vex ordered over the station intercom. His voice carried a note of respect that had not been there before. Lisa was already working on Zarek again, checking his condition after the rough exit from the tunnel. "He's stable," she reported, "but he needs surgery immediately." The station's medical team arrived quickly. Doctors from 3 different alien species worked together to treat Zarek's injuries. They moved him to the medical center while Lisa explained his condition and the treatments she had already given him. For 3 days, Zarek lay unconscious in the medical center. The alien doctors and Lisa worked around the clock to save his life. They had to rebuild his damaged leg using metal implants. They repaired internal bleeding that would have killed him without treatment. They fought off infections that his injured body could not handle alone. Jake never left the medical center during those 3 days. He slept in a chair beside Zarek's bed. He ate meals brought by other workers. He read old books to pass the time while machines monitored his friend's recovery. On the fourth morning, Zarek's amber eyes opened. They were clear and alert for the first time since the rescue. He looked around the medical center, then focused on Jake's tired face. "You stayed," Zarek said. His voice was weak but steady. "Told you we don't leave people behind," Jake replied without looking up from his book. Elder Thane entered the medical center with several other fill-in-our workers. Their faces showed emotions that were rare for their species. Confusion, gratitude, and something that might have been shame mixed together in their amber eyes. "Human Morrison," Elder Thane said formally, "you have shown the Fellinar something we thought impossible. You risked everything for one who was already considered lost by honor." Jake finally looked up from his book. "Honor doesn't mean much if you're actually dead." Thane's whiskers twitched in what might have been amusement. "Indeed. The Fellinar Council on our homeworld has been informed of your actions. They have voted to propose a formal alliance with humanity. Your species has shown us a different kind of honor, one that does not accept defeat, even when facing certain death." Commander Vex appeared in the doorway of the medical center. The Drakmarian commander's scaly face showed no emotion, but his posture was different, more respectful somehow. "The Drakmarian Empire has also reconsidered our position regarding human contractors," Vex announced. "Your rescue operation, while reckless by our standards, demonstrated capabilities we had not previously observed in your species." Jake grinned tiredly. "You mean you want to hire more humans because we're too stubborn to know when to quit?" "That is an accurate assessment," Vex admitted. Zarek struggled to sit up in his medical bed. His amber eyes burned with determination despite his weakness. "I pledge my life debt to you, Jake Morrison, and through me, all Fellinar pledge their claws to humanity's cause. You have shown us that true honor is not in accepting fate, but in defying it when friends are in danger." Word of the rescue spread quickly through the galaxy's communication networks. Other species heard about the humans who had risked everything to save one alien worker. Some were impressed. Others were confused. All of them took notice. The mining station continued its operations, but now it was more than just a place to dig crystals. It had become the birthplace of something new, an alliance between species that thought differently about honor, loyalty, and the value of individual life. Jake returned to his work as an engineer, but things were different now. Alien workers who had barely spoken to him before now treated him with deep respect. The Fellinar workers called him Brother in Claws, a title of honor in their culture. Even the cold Drakmarians nodded politely when they passed him in the corridors, and it all began because a stubborn human from Texas refused to let his friend die alone in the dark. Because when everyone else had given up, Jake Morrison and his team had proven something important about humanity. They had shown the galaxy that humans don't leave people behind, not when there's still hope, not when there's still fight left in them. That was the human way, and now the galaxy knew it.